Meeting of Cape Fear Public Utility Authority to order. Welcome to our first ever virtual meeting of the CFPUA and hopefully the last virtual meeting of the CFPUA. I trust you're all well and weathering the inconveniences of COVID-19. The past several weeks have certainly brought some unprecedented challenges to our country and our state and our community. I can't think of a single person out there that has not been profoundly affected in a multitude of ways. And we all know that more challenges lie ahead. At the same time, we've seen people all around us rise.
Checking on audio.
Is now joining.
Rise to meet these challenges. Healthcare workers and first responders.
NHCTV.
Is now exiting.
But also the people on the staff of this organization. They're in our field, they're working remotely, and some are spending days at a time at our water treatment plant, sleeping in trailers, all to make sure our community continues to be safe. Reliable water service is being delivered to the whole community. I've always considered it a privilege to serve on this board, and never more so than in the past few weeks. Donna Pope has been kind enough to send out instructions for our meeting today, which includes a few points of order and etiquette. As a reminder to everyone, please mute yourselves when not speaking. When you unmute to make a motion or second or comment, please begin with your name. It will seem a bit awkward at first, but we'll all get the hang of it. Also, please do not put us on hold. This can create background noise that's impossible to talk over. Finally, each item on our agenda requiring a vote will be voted on through a roll call. Again, unmute, speak, and mute. Now let's run through this one time to make sure we have a quorum. I'm going to do a quick roll call and just please unmute yourself, speak, and mute again. Jessica Cannon.
Bill, one quick comment. Hollis is having trouble logging on. He'll be with us in a minute.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
I'm here.
All right, so Jessica?
Present.
Jennifer Adams.
This is Jennifer.
Hollis Briggs, we just heard from you.
Hollis Briggs is here.
Larry Sneeden.
Here.
Rob Zappel.
Present.
Wes Corder.
Here.
Dean Hackney.
Here.
Jonathan Barfield.
Aye, aye.
Charlie Rivenbark.
Here.
And Kevin O'Grady.
Here.
All right, let's get rolling. The first thing on our agenda today is obviously the adoption of this agenda. If there are no dissenting votes, I will simply acknowledge approval. All right, our agenda has been adopted through acclamation. And now approval of the minutes. I'll turn to Dean Hackney.
I guess it would be the March minutes of the March meeting are in the packet and need approval.
So moved. This is Rob
Second.
Zappel.
Rob Zappel, do we have a second?
Second,
Hollis
Charlie
Briggs, second.
Rivenbark.
All right. I will also, any dissenting votes for this? All right, approval by acclamation, and we will move on to our new business. And first thing on our agenda today will be administrative reports, and Linda Miles, attorney's report.
Yes, I do not. Yes, this is Linda Miles. I do not have anything today.
All right, thank you, Linda. And our executive director, Jim Fleckner.
Thank you. This is Jim. We certainly appreciate the support and the dedication of all of our board members who continue to put a lot of time and effort into this organization. And as Bill mentioned, staff have certainly stepped up to meet the extraordinary challenges that this pandemic poses, not just for our community.
Checking on audio.
Is now exiting.
For the services we provide. Our employees have been creative, they've been resourceful, they've been flexible, and they've been resilient. And as always, I am proud to work alongside of this staff and I hardly find it surprising, as I'm sure it's unsurprising to those of you who were on this board during Hurricane Florence. Like much of the rest of North Carolina, CFPUA is beginning the process of moving back, if not exactly to normal, at least to what the new normal will be. And that will be defined largely by the threat of the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. We've been approaching this new normal in a staged process, taking our lead from the governor's three-phase benchmark-driven approach. This includes changes for how staff works day to day, such as staggered shifts and continued working remotely for many of them. Our customers will see some changes as well. We are in the process of opening our customer service lobby to accommodate face-to-face transactions while making sure our customers and our employees stay safe. Above all, we will continue to be focused on providing the exemplary customer service that our community is used to, and also providing safe and reliable water and wastewater services. At the March board meeting, the board did pass a resolution for business continuity that gave staff the authority to approve certain items that would normally require board action. And we did have 4 items that did not come to an April meeting because the meeting was not held that were approved at the staff level. And information about those 4 were sent to the board on March 27th. I'll briefly cover those and answer any questions that the board may have. The first item involved membranes for the Richardson water treatment plant. That was a $92,262 purchase. The second item was a contract amendment for environmental services associated with the Greenfield Lake pump station. And those environmental documents are required for the loan that we're getting through the state. The third item had to do with the Bradley Creek pump station 35, and that was for the emergency purchase of parts for the bar screen. And because that bar screen is made by a specific manufacturer, we had to go back to that manufacturer to get those parts. That was a $41,205 purchase. And lastly, we had a $106,595 purchase for IT equipment. That was a programmed purchase, something we've been planning for some time, and that was purchased off of the state contract, so those items were competitively bid. Before we move into today's action items, are there any questions on the items that did not come to the board for approval?
Jim, this is Rob Zappel. Jim, do you need a motion to move those forward?
No, we don't need a motion. We were required to update the board on those items at the next board meeting, which we've done. So no specific action is required for that.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, we'll move into the action items for today's meeting. And the first up is on page 10 of your book, and it is the sole source purchase of parts for pump station 34 grinder. Pump station 34 is on Pine Grove Drive. It's one of our larger pump stations, and the grinder simply chops up solids such as rags, wood, plastics, and other things that get into the system before they get into the wet well. The grinder may be able to be repaired, but this item gives us the authority to move forward with its full replacement if we can't repair it with just getting parts. It's an $85,226 purchase, and staff recommends approval.
I would move the item.
Charlie has asked to move the item. Is there a second?
Jonathan,
Jim,
second.
Jonathan?
Just one quick question.
Certainly,
One
Rob.
quick question, Bill. Thank you. Jim, by looking at the supporting documents, it looks like a new one costs $79,000. Why would we even consider repairing this? Why don't we just move forward with replacing it?
And that's what staff is looking at, but this gives us the option to replace it completely if just replacing a couple parts doesn't make sense. But we wanted to get this
Yeah.
approved so that as we do get that information, we can make the right decision. But my sense is it will probably be a full replacement by the time we're done.
Right. Okay, thank you.
We have a, motion and a second. I'm gonna go through a quick roll call. Ayes and nays, please, and, I'll start with Jessica.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Aye.
Hollis.
Aye.
Larry.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
Wes.
Aye.
Deans.
Aye.
Jonathan.
Aye.
Charlie.
Aye.
And Kevin.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes, and we'll move on to item 2. Jim?
Thank you. This is Jim. Our next item is on page 15 of your packet, and it is the authorization for the sole source purchase of additional water meters, Badger water meters, for the meter replacement program. And this is simply to buy enough meters to round out what we believe is needed to complete the project. And when this is done, all of our meters will be equipped with automatic meter reading devices, and also we'll have fresh meters in place where they need to be replaced. So with that, it's an additional 3,733 meters. The cost is $303,752, and staff would recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move the motion. Charlie?
This is Jessica. I'll second it.
Thank you, Jessica. Any more discussion?
Yes, Bill, it's Rob Zappel. Jim, I know we've had some change orders. This is, I guess, the completion of a 3-year program. Do we have the original cost estimate as opposed to what this has cost us over the last 3 years?
I can go back and pull what we had originally contemplated and budgeted for the project, and what we've actually paid, of course, will be driven by what was actually installed in the field. And that's always the challenge with a project such as this, where we have 67,000 plus meters. We obviously didn't have an inventory of each one, so we've been adjusting our quantities as we've gone through. But we will be more than happy to get together a summary of what was budgeted and what has been spent since the beginning of the project.
Thank
And
you.
we'll send that in.
Any more questions? All right, we'll go through a vote again. Jessica?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Hollis?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Charlie? Charlie? And Kevin?
Aye.
One more time. Charlie, are you there? All right. Ayes have it. Let's move on to number 3, Jim.
Thank you. This is Jim. The next item is to install those meters, and it's a change order with Pedal Valves Incorporated, which is the contractor that's doing the work for us. And again, this will continue our program and essentially complete our program to install the automatic meter reading technology, which allows us to get meter reads simply by driving a vehicle or a truck nearby those meters. And certainly with the conditions we're facing now, we're very grateful to have this technology in place. So we would recommend approving a change order with pedal valves in the amount of $186,706.
All right, Rob, I would think this goes under the same budgeted item, as the number two. So, by the same token, I think we'll ask Jim to get those figures together for us
We
with
will.
him respond.
Thank you,
So
Bill.
I'll entertain a motion to approve
So moved, Rob Zappel.
and a second.
Second, Hollis Briggs, second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any more discussion? All right, let's go through vote. Jessica,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Wes,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Jonathan,
Aye.
Charlie. I think we've lost Charlie for a little while. Kevin.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes, and we will move on to number 4.
Thank you. This is Jim. The next item is a emergency contract change order number 1. And this is a contract that we use when we need either a quick response or a response that may exceed our capacity to fix. So we contract that work out, and this contract is with Carolina Civil Works, and that was awarded last January. This change order is for $300,000, and you can see on the agenda item, which is on page 21 of the packet, how the money has been spent to date. And I can say that some of that money we expect to get back through insurance claims that are ongoing. This is money we won't spend, obviously, unless we need it, but if we do need that support from the emergency contractor, we need to have this change order approved. So with that, staff recommends approval of a $300,000 change order with Carolina Civil Works.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Jonathan, make a motion to approve.
Jonathan, and a
Second, Rob Zappel.
Thank you, Rob. Any more discussion, questions?
This is Jennifer.
right.
I'm just,
Good.
Bill, it's Jennifer, a question. Just wondering what
Yes, good.
what's the typical annual emergency contract? How much do we end up spending on an annual basis?
We're in the $500,000 to $600,000 range, but all it takes really was one big event to upset what we would typically spend. So,
Okay, so we're consistent year over
Historically,
year with this one then?
yeah, this is pretty consistent. You can see it spread out over several projects, but they
Okay.
can end up being costly if we get into a long duration event.
Okay.
Any more questions? All right, call the vote. Jessica,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Hollis,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Wes,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Jonathan,
Aye.
Charlie, and Kevin.
Aye.
All right, motion passes, and we can move on to item 5. Jim?
Thank you. This is Jim. This item is on page 25 of your packet, and it's authorization to approve a contract with McKim & Creed, which is an engineering firm, in the amount of $200,000. And this is related to on-call engineering services for our various wells. We have several wells that we would like to return to service that are existing wells that could be used in an emergency, and we need the engineering support to get those re-permitted and back into service. And there are also times when we need engineering support to perhaps design a new well or to fix or retrofit a well. So while we don't have specific tasks associated with this contract yet, This will allow us to work with McKim and Creed to get that engineering support for the wells as we need it. They have experience in this work, and we did follow, obviously, state statutes in our selection of the firm. Staff recommends approval of the contract with McKim and Creed in the amount of $200,000.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved, Kevin O'Grady.
Hollis Briggs,
Jessica, second.
Thank you, Hollis. All right, any more questions, comments?
Yes, Bill, Rob Zappel.
Yes, sir.
Jim, two questions. First, what areas of the county are the existing wells that we're looking at rehabbing? And the second question is, as we bring them on, will McKim and Creed test for PFAS before bringing them on, so we have some idea if there's any contamination?
Most of our wells are either in the Richardson area in the northern part of the county or in the Monterey Heights in the southern part of the county. And we have emergency wells in both those areas, and a few spread around even in the Sweeney area. But staff would do the testing for PFAS, and as we bring wells on, we certainly make sure we understand water quality, water chemistry, so that as we do start blending this water, that we're confident that it's compatible with the water we have in the system. And that's all part of what we do here and what McKim and Creed will be helping us with. So yes, absolutely, we would do that.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, we have a motion and a second, so we will go once again to our vote. Jessica?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Hollis?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Charlie? And Kevin?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes, and we can move on.
Charlie Rivenbark?
Is now exiting.
Move on to number 6 on our agenda. And Jim?
Thank you. This is Jim, and this item is on page 29 of your packet, and it's related to the Motts Creek Pump Station 69, which is located along River Road just south of the River Lights development. And that's an area that's seen a lot of growth, and with that growth comes the need to upgrade the capacity in some of our regional pump stations, such as this one. We are applying for a low-interest loan from the state for this project.
Unknown participant is now joining.
It's about a $5.5 million project. Funding that with debt is consistent with our financial plans, so getting the low-interest loan from the state certainly would be to our advantage. There are 2 resolutions that need to be passed by the board, and each would need to be voted on separately, and staff recommends approval of both resolutions.
Okay, do we have a motion for, what's the first resolution?
Kevin O'Grady, I move to.
Move the first resolution. Do we have a second?
Hollis Briggs, second.
Alice, thank you. Any discussion on the resolution 1? What page is that, Jim? You've got it in front of you.
It's on page 30.
Page 30 is what we're referencing.
I'm sorry, there is one resolution. There was a typo in the cover memo. There's only one resolution.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
one resolution. It's PS 69. So there's only one resolution. We do have a motion and a second. And any further discussion or questions? All right, we'll go through roll call. Jessica?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Hollis?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye.
and Kevin.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Motion passes, and we will move on to item 7. Jim?
Thank you. This is Jim. This item is on page 33 of your packet, and it's authorization to negotiate a sole source purchasing contract for treatment chemicals. And these chemicals are related to corrosion inhibitors that we put into our water at both of our treatment plants, the Sweeney and the Richardson plant. Once we get a chemical that is stable and that is successful, we like to stay with that instead of mixing up the chemistry in our water. So this is a approval to award a contract to the vendor, Caris LLC, to negotiate a new contract with a vendor. And this is about $100,000 expense that we have each year, and staff would like to negotiate a sole source contract for that. We recommend approval.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have a motion for approval?
This is Jennifer. I have a question. It doesn't say who the vendor is. Who are we negotiating with?
We haven't identified that vendor yet, but before we get into those discussions, we need the approval to do that. And then we'll bring it back for award.
So what we're approving is for Jim to negotiate a contract and then bring it back for approval to the board next month.
Well, it just seems a little strange to approve a sole source when we don't know who the vendor is.
Right. We would bring that contract back to the board, but before we go out and start negotiating with a single vendor, we need the approval of the board to do that.
But this is Larry Sneed, and just for clarification, in the agenda item at the bottom, it says that we're authorizing the executive director to negotiate and execute a sole source purchase contract. So are we bringing it back to the board or not?
We'll bring the contract back to the board.
Right.
The board should have said on the recommended action to negotiate the sole source.
Right.
Execute.
The execute part shouldn't be in there, and we would modify the recommended action to take the execute that contract out and simply to negotiate a sole source contract.
Jim, this is Rob. Jim, I want to go back upstream. It's clear that we're having problems with delivery and the quantity. Why has this become a problem? And why are we jumping horses here?
We were having trouble with consistency of the product that we were getting. We did not have any troubles with water quality, but we certainly would like to make sure that when we do enter into a contract, we're comfortable that the vendor is capable of providing what we need, and that's where this authorization to negotiate that is helpful, instead of simply putting it out for bid and selecting the low bidder later.
All right. I take it, the negotiations or discussions with the existing vendor, Caris, have broken down, and you feel they can no longer provide us with this material. Is that correct?
That's correct. So under this, now the recommended action, thank you, Mr. Sneeden, should be to negotiate a sole source purchase contract for a 1-year period and not to execute that contract.
But it just seems if there's an issue with this, I'm sorry, this is Jennifer. If there's an issue with getting corrosion control orthophosphate, that we would want to go to as many vendors as possible to see what others can offer. And just because we put it out for bid, does it automatically mean we have to take the lowest bidder, or can't we take the most qualified, which may not be the lowest bidder? I mean, don't we have the option to do that?
We do, and then there's a process for disqualifying bidders. And that certainly can be complex if we're telling a company that they're not qualified to do the work. And our thinking was that given the importance of our water chemistry and the relatively low dollar value compared to some of our other chemicals, that it makes sense to go out and make sure we're getting the best product that we can get and consistently get for our plant. And that was the logic behind it, but we can certainly take a different approach if the board's not comfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
So then instead of issuing into a contract for a year period, why don't we just do a 6 month like we did with Karis? And then if that vendor proves worthy, we can continue it.
Sure, we'll be glad to do that. In that case, this item simply can be tabled, set aside.
Or just negotiate for a 6 month period versus a 1 year.
Okay, that would be fine too. We'll be glad to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then change your order later if it's successful.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
This is Rob. I agree with Jennifer's point of view.
Yeah, this is Larry. I'm assuming that this doesn't preclude us negotiating, seeking out multiple sources and picking and negotiating from those multiple sources, not just going to one company and saying, what will you charge us? But we can, you can go to multiple companies still and negotiate. Is that correct?
That was our plan. Yes.
If that's the case, then I'm comfortable with the 1 year. If you're going to others, because I didn't catch that in the first go around.
Okay.
Good clarification, Larry. Yep.
yeah.
And this contract would come back to the board, obviously, and we could report on our negotiations and how that process went.
But so just to clarify, this is Bill. You instead of putting it out for bid with several companies, you're gonna identify the companies you want to contact. That's why this is a little bit different than a normal bidding situation.
Right. When it goes out to bid, we can't control who bids. And given the importance of the chemicals for our drinking water, we wanted to make sure we were going to the best suppliers out there that we could.
But you're going to start with multiple suppliers and narrow
Yes,
it to one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then bring it back to the board for approval with the reasoning behind.
Yes. Yes. We'll bring a full recommendation back to the board.
So it's a little bit different. I see why you're asking for the board's consent to go out there and negotiate, because this is a little bit different than the typical bidding process.
Right.
Because you're going to contact the ones you feel are
Yes.
reputable.
Yes.
Okay. I see your point, and I appreciate the clarification. That being the case, I will entertain a motion to give them the ability to go out and negotiate this and bring it back to the board.
I'll second that. That's Jennifer.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And we will go through our voting process. Jessica?
Aye.
Bill,
Jennifer.
excuse me, this is Donna. I did not hear who moved.
I moved it.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I'm not used to that.
Good. Moving down that agenda, Jennifer?
Aye.
Hollis?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Charlie? Lost Charlie again. Kevin?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. The motion passes, and we move on to our next item, which is number 8, financial advisor contract. Tim?
Thank you. The next two items will be presented by John McLean, our Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning, this is John. This item is for and we're on page 35 of your packet. This item is for a contract renewal with our financial advisor, Davenport and Company. The financial advisor helps us with investment planning, debt analysis, and other financial matters. Davenport has been our financial advisor for the past 4 years, and they've done a great job for us. They've led us through 3 debt issuances, the most recent back in October. This contract provides for the same pricing as the old contract with no increase for an annual cost of $55,000, and this contract has a 3-year term. There is also language in the contract that covers debt transactions, and those costs would be paid for out of the bond proceeds of those related transactions. And with that said, we are recommending approval.
Staff's recommended approval for keeping our financial advisor and renewing this contract with Davenport. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the item, Kevin O'Grady.
Do we have a second?
House Briggs, second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions?
Yeah, Bill, yes, one quick question to John. It's Rob. John, I'm assuming that the $25,000 retainer per year is tied up in that $55,000 per year that we're paying. Is that correct?
Correct. The 55 is the $25,000 retainer plus the $30,000 flat fee for the investment program.
I see. But how much do we spend with these guys last year total?
Right. So it was the $55,000, and then we also, you're talking about last fiscal year, we had that one private placement transaction back in 2019, and I believe the issuance cost on that was $60,000. Actually, no, it was $75,000, all paid out of the bond proceeds. So it's a minimum of $60,000 per transaction, and since that transaction included a refunding component, there's another $15,000. So it was the 75 plus the 55.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
This year it would be the 55 plus, and I think there was this last transaction in October was $90,000. It was the $60,000 minimum plus there was a refunding component plus it was a public sale, which is another $15,000. So $90,000 total, which was all paid for out of the bond proceeds.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further questions, we'll go through the vote. Jessica?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Hollis?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Deans?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Charlie? And Kevin?
Aye.
All right, motion passes, and we'll move on to our audit services contract. John?
This is John, and we're on page 42 of your packet. State law requires that the board approve the financial audit contract. Cherry Beckert has been our auditor for the last several years. This contract has a 3-year term and comes with a marginal price increase. I think it's a $1,500 increase over the last contract. And these annual costs of $34,500 per year will be paid out of the annual operating budget, and we are recommending approval.
Thank you, John. Do we have a motion for approval?
This is Jennifer, so moved.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. Do we have a second?
The second is Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions?
Yes, I just had two quick questions for clarification. John, I could not figure out what the CAFR, in reference on that one graph on page 42, what CAFR stands for. And also, what was the additional single audit that came up this past year?
Right, so there is a federal single audit requirement. So any federal programs that we receive funds for, we have to have a compliance audit. And then the additional single audit, there's also a state single audit requirement. And we get, and we're still spending under those 3 grants. And so those are required to have a single audit as well. And that's what those components are. And then your first question,
CAFR.
right, that's the CAFR, that's the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. That is the report that their audit opinions are in. They opine on the basic financial statements, so the balance sheet, the income statement, the statement of cash flows, and then the note disclosures. There's a lot of other information contained in that report that they do not give an opinion on, but that's our main financial report that we issue each and every year.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We will go through our vote to keep Cherry Beckhart as our auditor. And Jessica?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Hollis?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Wes?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Give Charlie another shot. And Kevin?
Aye.
And the motion passes. All right, thank you very much. And that brings us to item 10 on our agenda, which is the fiscal 21 operating budget. Jim?
Thank you. This is Jim. And this is a presentation that begins on page 67 of your packet, but directing your attention to page 68. And as we move into June, we'll be looking to adopt a operating budget for fiscal 21. And putting that together is a detailed process that we go through here to document and understand the operating needs of the organization, not just in the field, but through customer service and every aspect of what we do. And we're also, of course, always mindful of affordability, making sure that we keep our rates as low as possible, while also making sure that we are able to provide the best services we can to meet the needs of our community in terms of clean water and public health, and also in environmental protection. So this morning, we have an overview of staff's recommended 21 budget and some important components of that. It does meet all of our operating needs. We're confident that the budget as presented represents what it will take to run the organization in fiscal year 21. It also includes all of our debt service payments. As you know, we took on additional debt this year related to the Sweeney enhancements and also the raw water line. So the expense of those projects and their debt service are now included in our 21 budget. It is important to note, though, that the operating cost of Sweeney, of course, does not show up because the project is not complete yet. This budget also includes the $18 million pay-as-you-go capital funding that we have discussed over the years and determined to be the right amounts to put into our system and invest in it with cash each year. And it's also important to note that all this can be accomplished without increasing our water and sewer rates. So we had often talked about a rate increase associated with Sweeney, but I can say this is the tightest budget we have put together in the history of this organization. And we were able to include the Sweeney and the raw water debt service, fund our capital needs, all without increasing rates next year. And an overlay of everything that we're discussing in our lives, of course, includes the impacts of COVID. We did not in any way try to anticipate how that might affect us. We're obviously operating differently than we were, but we did not include any provision for expenses or revenue impacts associated with COVID. We think it's premature to make decisions like that now, but we will obviously monitor the impacts, work with our community, and sort through that as the year progresses. But we are positioned to deal with that if we need to. That's what our cash balance has been designated for, is to help us through the short-term problems such as the one we're facing now. And with that, I'll turn it back over to John McClain, our CFO, to walk through some more detail of the budget.
Thanks, Jim. This is John, and we're on page 69 now. So the total proposed operating budget for fiscal year 21 is $89,979,681, which is about a 5.2% increase over the adopted budget for FY20. You can see the changes in some of the appropriation and revenue categories, and in the subsequent slides, the slides that follow, we'll dive into what's driving those differences. And at the end of every slide, I'll pause for questions if there are any. So on to page 70. This is kind of a look at our salaries and benefits. We're looking at about a $1.3 million increase for FY21 over the FY20 adopted budget. And this increase is due to a few things. We are asking for 4 new authorized full-time equivalent positions, including a water control operator, a facilities specialist, and then a new pump station crew that consists of a pump station foreman and a pump station operator to keep up with our increase in the number of pump stations, just to keep up with the maintenance there. Also, this budget includes parity adjustments for laboratory staff, and that the intention of that was to meet market levels and to reduce some attrition that we've been seeing there. It also includes a 3% merit pool and a 1% cost of living adjustment for current employees. An increase in the employer contribution rates to the local government employees retirement system from 8.95% of covered payroll to 10.15%. And then also a budgeted increase in the employer share of state health plan premiums that would be effective January 1st of 2021. And on the subsequent slide, you can see a little more breakdown on page 71 of your packet, just those different kind of subcategories of salaries and benefits, and you can see the comparison FY21 to the FY20 adopted there. Some of the, I guess, the ones that kind of stick out, you can see that 18.5% pension contribution. That increase is due to a number of things. It's due to having those 4 new employees. It's due to having the 3% merit increase and that 1% cost of living adjustment that would have resulted in that number going up. But then you also have an increase in percentage that we, as the employer, are contributing on behalf of our employees. So that's what's making up that 18.5% number there. As far as our standby goes, you'll see there's a 29% increase there. That's really just to kind of align it. We kind of changed our approach of how we forecasted for this. We would, ask for input from our different department heads. On the standby pay, we kind of moved to a more historical average approach, and I think you just see kind of a recalibration there, looking at about a $48,000 increase there. Are there any questions on this slide?
John, on the slide before, it's Rob, John. What is a facility specialist, and what is it they're going to bring to the overall organization that we don't already have?
Sure. So the facility specialist is a position that's in the centralized maintenance department. And what's currently happening is we have been training two facility specialists that are currently on staff to do some instrumentation. That instrumentation is currently contracted out. So we will be realizing, I think between $100,000 and maybe $30,000 in savings on that contract. But these guys moving from a facility specialist to these instrumentation techs has kind of left a void in some of the work that centralized maintenance would do, that these guys currently do. And so we are basically backfilling those reclassifications of those current facility specialists. They're getting reclassed to those instrumentation techs, and we are backfilling with a single facility specialist to make sure that the critical work that's done in centralized maintenance, continues to get done.
John, if I hear you correctly, then we're basically taking what we used to subcontract out and doing it in-house, and thus we are going to see a savings. Is that
correct?
Summary of that? Great. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
Okay, on to, this is page 72, onto the operating appropriations category. It is decreasing. This category in total is decreasing compared to FY20 by about $1.7 million. That decrease is mainly attributable to reductions in the wastewater treatment department related to biosolids disposal. If you'll remember, we, beefed up the operating category line for the wastewater treatment to accommodate landfilling biosolids, and that was a $1.5 million increase there. We have now taken that in-house, and we have contracted with someone or with a vendor to haul those to the landfill, and we separately negotiated landfill tipping fees. And so we are basically doing that program now at the same cost of land applying that land applying would have cost or costed back a couple of years ago. And so, we saw an increase last year, but that we're seeing a reduction this year related to that. On the next page, on page 73, that's just a breakdown by department of all of the operating categories, lines there. You can see there's a substantial increase for centralized maintenance. What we've done is we really sat down with staff and, tried to come up with a logical approach of what centralized maintenance does. That we, a lot of what centralized maintenance does, or some of it, was that those costs were budgeted in other departments. We've taken, budget from those other departments and put it in centralized maintenance. And that's why you see a pretty substantial increase there, that $489,000, and you see substantial decreases, in other departments like water treatment. And I'll answer any questions if you have them on this slide. Okay. On to, this is page 74. This just addresses our debt service and our transfers to capital. Our FY '21 debt service requirements are approximately $3.3 million more than FY '20. And that's due to the new bond issuance that we did this past October. And it also includes debt service on 3 state revolving loans that just closed out recently. The FY '21 budget, as Jim mentioned, includes $18 million in PAYGO funding. That's a $1.5 million increase from the FY '20 adopted budget. Again, we reduced the PAYGO transfer line to fund that biosolids program cost while being rate neutral. And now we're back to fully achieving that $18 million, which is consistent with our long-term planned capital investments and also our financial policies. On the revenue side, on page 75, you'll see that, I guess the next 2 slides, this first one addresses fixed rate revenues, and the next one is the volumetric rate side of things. And both of the FY '21 budgeted fixed and volumetric revenues are assumed to grow due to growth in customers. As Jim mentioned, there is no rate increase contained in this budget. We're looking at about a 4% and a 3.8% growth in ERUs for water and wastewater respectively. And that's just based on our actual growth trends that we've experienced in recent years. So you can see the table that's there, looking at about a $3,600 increase in ERUs, resulting in a $595,000 increase in fixed charges for water service, and then a 3,260 ERU increase, resulting in about a $569,000 increase in wastewater fixed charges compared to the FY '20 adopted budget.
Mm-hmm. John, it's Rob again. Before you move on there, we're looking at, an assumption, and Jim addressed it earlier about we're not figuring in any impacts of the COVID-19, and I understand that, and we'll be relying on fund balance for that. But, I see, essentially $2.5 million in assumed growth or increase between the water and sewer revenues overall for next year. Are you comfortable with riding with that number? I'm sure we're going to see some kind of an impact. It's just a matter of how much. Are you comfortable moving forward with these 2 numbers?
Right, and it's just like you said, we have that $50 million that was specifically, designed to weather us and insulate us from incidents just like this. These assumptions, it's just based on kind of the best data that's available to us. This is in line with that kind of trend line that we've been seeing over the past 3 years. And Carl and I have had some discussions on what we're seeing in terms of development, and it seems like it's still on track. I don't think we haven't really seen any tapering off as far as that goes. So with that said, I do feel comfortable with these assumptions, and to the extent that we have growth that's less than what's assumed, then we'll dip into that $50 million that's deliberately designed to insulate us from just such a situation.
All right. Thank you, John.
Sure. On the next page, on page 76, just to look at our volumetric rate revenues. Actually, we're looking at trimming back slightly on the usage per ERU. to kind of trim us back from the high consumption that we saw this past year. So looking at about a 1.1% decrease on the water side and about a 0.1 decrease on the wastewater side. So the growth here, about, as Rob mentioned, about, this is about $1.5 million. This is due exclusively to customer growth. And so we're looking at about a $627,000 increase compared to the FY20 adopted budget on the water side, and on the wastewater side, looking at about an $822,000 increase there. On page 77, this addresses our SDCs. Our total SDCs that we're forecasting in this budget is $5,785,500. Again, the SDCs are the fees that new customers pay to buy into their share of existing water and wastewater infrastructure. The projected SDC revenue total that I just mentioned is the product of the SDC rates that we presented back in March and the estimated number of new customers that will be assessed the SDCs on an ERU basis. So again, those rates, those proposed rates are, and this is for a single ERU, are $1,920 for water and $2,070 for wastewater. And we're assuming that 1,450 new customers, again, that's on an ERU basis, will be assessed SDCs. That's both on the water and the wastewater side. This graph that you see before you is kind of a trend in the actual number of assessed SDCs on an ERU basis from 2009 to 2019. And if you were to actually extend this graph a little further to the right to include 2020, the number of ERUs would actually be above this dotted line. That dotted line is what we're assuming in the FY21 budget. So if you're looking at FY21, what we're budgeting compared to FY20 actual, the number of SDCs, or the number of ERUs, that will be assessed an SDC is actually going down. But it's in line with what we actually saw in 2019, and then it's also in line with the 3-year average that we actually experienced from 2017 to 2019. So feel very comfortable with those numbers there. Questions? Okay, so just looking at next steps for next month's meeting. So we will be having a public hearing and adoption of the FY21 system development charges that were presented back in March. We will be looking to adopt our FY21 capital improvement plan. We'll be presenting, again, a formal recommendation of this FY21 budget, including, any revisions that the board may have, in the meantime on the information that was just presented. Also, I'll be presenting our 20-year financial projections and the rate and fee schedule. We will have a public hearing on the budget that's required by state statute, and we will adopt the budget ordinance and the rate and fee schedule. Are there any questions?
All right.
Thank you.
John, thank you for your hard work on the budget. And obviously, our board has time to review that between now and our next meeting and come up with any additional questions they may have. And I'm sure you will entertain their questions over the next month if they've got an opportunity to call you.
Sure. Yeah, please feel free to reach out, email, phone call. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the hard work for you and your team on that, John, and the whole staff. All right, our key indicators report, Jim.
Thank you. The key indicators, the environmental report, and the safety report are all in the packet. And if there are questions on those, we will certainly be glad to answer them or get follow-up information to the board. The next item is on page 108 of the packet, and that is our monthly financial report. And with that, I will pass it back to John McLean, our CFO.
Sure. So I'll just give an abbreviated version of this report on page, I guess this would be 109, I believe. It's the summary statement of revenues and expenditures, and this is for the nine months ending March 31st, 2020. Our total unrestricted fund balance is a little under $69 million. That's in line with our plans, you know, to spend down that fund balance number. On the operating side, so if you look at line 13, change in fund balance, that $2,030,850, that's a surplus to date through March 31st on the operating side, and I fully anticipate having a surplus at the end of the year. We have had some incremental cost increases due to COVID-19. Some measures that we've mentioned, like the sheltering in place for the or on site for the water operators and those types of things. But we've seen strong performance in our rate revenues and our SDCs, and I fully anticipate that to result in an operating surplus for the year for FY20. Moving on to the next page, this is just kind of a breakdown, and I know you're probably interested in kind of seeing how these different drivers, consumption and number of customers, have maybe changed recently, in light of COVID-19. This is through April 30th, and so we're capturing usage that that happened in March and April, and maybe even a little bit back into February. I think that we probably need to wait a little longer to get a full appreciation of how consumption and the number of customers has changed due to COVID-19. You can see here that that the number of ERUs is outpacing what we assumed in our budget, and then also from the billed consumption side, we're still seeing that outpace what we assumed in the budget as well. Carl had reported to the management team earlier this week that he's starting to see a little bit of a decrease in the water distribution, but it's been pretty minimal. I think it's about 5.5%. So we should start to see some of that kind of flow through as that consumption gets billed out. So we again are keeping a close watch on those trends. And that's all I have. Are there any questions?
John, yeah, it's Rob again. And this relates somewhat to the key indicators report as well. We've seen I know it's too early to call it a trend, but on page 85 in the permits reviewed, a drop off from a year ago of 212 to this past month of 135 permits reviewed. Does this catch your eye, and I'm sure you're watching it. I'm concerned again that we're going to see a slowdown in our overall economy, which will affect us at CFPUA. And I know we have the fund balance to kind of cover it, but have you, in your darker moments, put together what a budget would look like with a 10 or even a 20% drop in revenue?
Rob, this is Jim. We do follow those numbers, and of course things had slowed down some, but we do see that fluctuate over the course of a year. And
yes,
of course, one of the real indicators of our overall revenues is going to be water sales, And that's also affected by weather and other seasonality that can drive that up or down. So a lot of things will go into the equation, but our plan is to monitor that beginning early in the year. And we're fortunate that where we see the seasonality is at the beginning of our fiscal year in the summer, which really gives us the rest of the year to adjust to that, whether we need to find ways to cut expenses or otherwise adjust to it. But given the unknowns, we thought the best way to move forward was without increasing rates, keeping everything else status quo essentially. And if things do change significantly, we'll be up on the balls of our feet to be ready to adjust to it.
Well, good. Thank you, Jim. If you're adjusting it, I think one other category I'd add to, the revenue or a lever that we have here is the ability of people to pay or not pay their water and sewer bills. And I'm sure we're going to see an uptick in that, at least in the near future. Hopefully that trend will not take hold, and by the end of the year or early next year, it will pick back up again. But I know that will impact our revenue. Thanks. I know I'm focused on a kind of a pessimistic point of view, and I apologize to the whole board about that. That's not my usual way. It's just that the numbers and what I'm seeing has really caught my eye. It's a serious issue that is going to be lagging and coming at us, starting really next month and for several months after. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Jim, for the explanation.
Thank you. Without other questions on the monthly, John, were you done with the financial report? The customer service update is in your packet on page 127. If there are questions on that, we can certainly answer them. But I can say that staff has done an excellent job working remotely. Our IT department set up all of our customer service staff so that we could continue to provide services to our customers while keeping our staff safely distanced. Our lobby is partially reopened now, and we're seeing customers beginning to come back and do business directly with us. With the new software that customer service is using, it does provide us opportunities to enhance and expand some of the services. We've ordered a kiosk that we'll put in our lobby here at the administration building so people can come in and make payments to their accounts without ever having to be face-to-face with a customer service representative. That was allowed with the new software, gave us that ability. And we can also consider, as we move into the year, looking at other services that we can provide, such as bill leveling, where customers pay the same amount every month based on what their historical consumption has been, so that they don't have those bigger spikes in certain months. And Duke Energy and others do that now. So with our new software, we'll be in a position to do that. And we'll be looking at that, and that really addressed some of the things Mr. Zappel was getting at, is how can we work with our customers and our community to help them through recognizing that the economy is very different than it was even just a few months ago. But we're certainly mindful of that, and we'll do all that we can to work with our customers and our community. If you have other questions about customer service or our service, we'd be glad to answer them or get that information to the board. The last item I have has to do with our meeting in June. We are looking at locations where we can safely get the board together, keeping our distance, making sure that we have an opportunity for public input. And we're looking now at meeting at the convention center, the Wilmington Convention Center. They offer the space that we need. They're set up for that type of meeting, so we'll be sending out more information about that as it comes in. But certainly we would look forward to getting back to in-person meetings, seeing everyone again, and conducting the business of the board in person. We appreciate all of the patience of the board as we've gone through this, and we'll certainly be here if there are any questions or if issues come up. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Norris.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any old business today that we need to discuss? If not, I want to thank staff. I want to thank our board for participating today. I know this has been a bit unusual and a bit awkward, but thank you for helping me get through it and certainly helping the staff get through it. And I appreciate everybody's participation. And with that, if anybody has any questions that need to be answered, if not, again, I thank you. I look forward to seeing everybody's smiling face in June when we can convene safely at a venue that will allow us to do that. And
Bill,
other than that, yes.
Bill, I had one comment on the end. I just wanted to end on a somewhat brighter note. That two items that came forward in our executive director's update that was dated May 8th that I believe needed a little bit of a spotlight on. First is the excellent work done by our centralized maintenance crew, who identified that issue out at the North Side wastewater treatment plant and the grit removal system. That's fantastic preventative maintenance. They caught what could have been a huge issue and got that system replaced, the grit removal system, which could have brought our main wastewater treatment plant to a grinding halt, literally. So bravo to them. Second one is to put a spotlight on Carl Vandermaiden, our Deputy Executive Director, and his contribution to the article that went with the AWWA, the American Water Works Association, in their recent newsletter. He's quoted in there, and it puts a really positive light on the work that we're doing here at the Sweeney and Richardson Water Treatment Plant. So thanks to Carl and the entire staff.
And thank you. We certainly appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. It's very obvious that water and sewer and the job being done by CFPUA is certainly an essential service for our community. And I applaud the staff and administration and the board for all they do to keep that service provided to our community. So thanks again for your kind comments, Rob. Thanks again to everybody for being here. If there is no other further work for the board today, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Jonathan.
Jonathan, thank you. Do we have a
Hollis
second?
Briggs, second.
I'm gonna just go ahead and decide that everybody is gonna vote yay for that. So, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, guys.